Hello and welcome to another video from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. Today I'm joined by David as we take a look through the key captaincy choices for Game Week 4. David, welcome.
Hi, how you doing?
Yes, good. Had a pretty bad game week myself, but my captaincy came in, Captain Salah, and so that's a smart segue into what we're going to talk about here. So have a look at the fixtures here, and the fixture that really screams out to me is Man City at home to Newcastle. And here's why. I'm putting up on the screen here is a handy tweet really from Fantasy Football community, aka Holly, and she's done it in a nice form because you can look at it. It's basically a sea of footballs. These are the goals that Aguero has scored at home to Newcastle. That's 9 in his last 3. 11 in his last 5, a couple of assists in, got loads of bonus as well during that time. Now, David, what are your thoughts on Aguero for the captaincy? Is it just the most obvious pick this week? And if so, why? And are there any other Man City players that we actually ought to be considering as well?
Yeah, I think this is where I'm looking at. And in a way, like, I know sometimes we can get lured into past records and we end up going for a nostalgia pick, but there's no way that Aguero is a nostalgia pick because when you look at his underlying numbers for this season, he's still playing like someone who can score a hat-trick at home against Newcastle. He's top for shots amongst strikers. He's second for shots on target among strikers, second for penalty box touches among strikers, and third for shots in the box. So, you know, he's in good form. And Newcastle, you know, are conceding a fair amount of big chances. I think it's 8. I think they've conceded.
He's also created 6 chances as well. So
Yeah,
those little A's for the assists, there's a chance of that as well from him.
yeah, exactly. So there's multiple avenues of points for him, and as we know, when he does score big, he'll get bonus as well. He's not one of those players that tends to lose out in that particular avenue. So yeah, I mean, and to be honest, like, I think City will be, if we sort of go for some more, you know, mental side of the game for players, like after drawing away at Wolves, you know, they've dropped points before Liverpool have, who I think are going to be their biggest title rivals this year. Like, this is the perfect game for Pep to just set them out and just roll out for a 4-5-0 win because they're capable of it and they're going to be more pumped up to do that, I think, because of last week's result. In terms of other options, I mean, Mendy I think is always going to get looked at as a bit of a differential every week because I can't really see Newcastle scoring in this game. I know we said that about Huddersfield, but you know, for me, I just can't see Newcastle scoring in this game. We know Mendy's going to be involved. You know, he's already got 4 assists this season. We showed last week he's capable of getting bonus when he's not even involved in goals or a clean sheet. So, you know, people sort of like have still sort of maybe struggling to get Aguero in. Lots of people have Mendy. Could look at him. Midfield is kind of harder to pick someone out because, you know, is Sterling going to play? David Silva is probably your best bet, I guess. But Bernardo Silva, you know, for example, who people have had, you know, his underlying numbers aren't as good as they have been. So Aguero definitely the main City pick, and my second, if we're going to go for a second past Aguero, would probably be Mendy.
Yeah, I mean, I look at that. I think David Silva's good. I think while De Bruyne's out, I think David Silva is just needed. I mean, he is, you know, he's in that same category as De Bruyne as importance to the team. A lot of the play goes through him. So yeah, I think if you've got David Silva, he could be a good shout as well. I don't have a handy picture like Holly's done here of lots of footballs, but I'm sure David Silva has done well against Newcastle before. Yeah, I mean, looking back at the fixtures, another one that stands out, and it's another historic record really, is Chelsea against Bournemouth. In particular, Eden Hazard. So he got onto the score sheet last time out at Newcastle with a penalty. But he loves to score against Bournemouth. 5 goals in his last 5 against the Cherries. Yeah, what's your thoughts on Chelsea options, in particular Eden Hazard?
Yeah, it's a tricky one whenever anyone asks me about Eden Hazard because he's one of my fantasy trolls. He seems to be one of these people who always does well when I don't have him and never does anything when I do. But I'm a man of numbers, I'm a man of stats. So when the stats are telling you, like what you mentioned, his history against that club and Bournemouth historically not particularly sure at the back, he's definitely worth looking at. We think he's probably going to play. You know, he made his first start at the weekend, and in the limited minutes he's had, he's obviously done very well. So he's creating a chance every 27 minutes. He's having a goal attempt in the penalty box every 44 minutes. You know, there's not really anything within the numbers to say don't go for him. If anything, they're saying have a look at him. I mean, for me, I'm still going to go with City, but again, like, I mean, not everybody has the option to go for a City asset necessarily. whereas Hazard still not as owned as I think he could be. Like I think Hazard in a few weeks' time is going to be highly owned. So if you can get him now and captain him now, could make a big difference for you.
While you've just been talking about, I've just put a picture up on the screen there for people to see about defences, looking at the best and the worst ones there, and I've filtered that by big chances conceded. So that means not necessarily that they're trying to attempt like kind of weak shots. These are actual genuine big chances here, and this is another good news for those thinking of Aguero really, because Newcastle are right up there. So Huddersfield have conceded the most big chances, but Newcastle are right up there with 8 there. So Huddersfield with 11, West Ham with 10, Everton with 9. So Everton defence pretty poor, but they have had 2 matches with largely 10 men. Fulham with 8 and Newcastle with 8 there. So they're the defences we should be targeting. But slightly worrying is Bournemouth right the way down there. So Liverpool the best, but then Bournemouth there with 2. Does that worry you slightly? So we all know Hazard's magic against Bournemouth, but that kind of stat there, how much credibility do you put towards that? Does that concern you about Hazard?
It does a little bit. Like I said, I'm always sceptical about Hazard, so that's always going to be something I'll think about. But I guess without wanting to, you said it yourself before. Cardiff, do they deserve to be in the Premier League? Is what you would say. Those numbers are going to be a little bit skewed, I think, because Cardiff just can't create chances. So it shouldn't really be a surprise that Bournemouth are so low. I mean, I think if they'd have played someone else in their opening fixture, then that number might be higher. Yeah. I haven't seen anything from Bournemouth to suggest that they are better defensively this year. I think I think the last match they played in against Everton sort of demonstrated that perfectly. They're always an attacking side, and they managed to get hit on the counter by a team that had 10 men. So it might be one of those numbers that's just a little bit skewed by playing a really bad team going forward. Yeah. I think a lot of teams, when they come out of games with Cardiff, are going to end up with a big chance conceded that's going to be lower than probably is accurate.
Yeah, this table here, I mean, obviously it's gonna lead to more kind of reasoned decisions after 4, probably even 6 games, because you can get a real breadth there. You can see teams have played against better and worse teams, and I do agree Bournemouth's fixtures have been great really, and arguably they haven't faced Eden Hazard. I know there's lots of talk this week about a lot of other players, but I think Eden Hazard, I think he is a bit special, and he is capable of unlocking this Bournemouth defence there. As you said, it on the eye test, they look pretty similar. They look gung-ho in attack. If they're going to concede 2, they're probably going to come back and try and score another 2, maybe 3. So yeah, I mean, what about some other options here? So last week it was all really about Salah, really, and then Kane did well as well. So what about some of these other big guns? Let's start with Liverpool first. What about Salah? Any hope for Salah captainers?
Yeah, I think so. The thing with Salah is just his numbers individually are still great. So I think he's top for shots amongst midfielders and chances created just in all departments. So it's just nothing has changed and made me think Salah's not part of the captaincy debate every week. Like for my particular team, because I don't have Hazard yet, and I don't have any Chelsea players yet, then it's kind of between Aguero and Salah, because I just think Salah's just got to be in the conversation every week. In a away game against Leicester, Leicester aren't a particularly strong team at the back. He could easily get a goal and assist in that.
I mean, I was looking at the shots table as well. You mentioned Aguero there, top 16. He's joint top there with Salah, and this is kind of, I quite like this, because this is where stats meet reality, and this is helpful. You and I, we tend to know what we're doing a bit more, hopefully, when the stats kind of pan out there, and we know that Aguero and Salah have been doing well as well. The other thing I quite like about Salah is he's created 12 chances, which is actually top. So the next nearest is Fraser at Bournemouth with 9. So once and as has proved, actually, Salah seems to be a bit more of the creative option and less of the scoring option so far. Just 3 games. So yeah, I think Salah, you can't discount him. Anyone with Salah with the little captain on him should be happy. What about Kane though? So he did well against Manchester United, but I know you spotted something around his shots. He didn't quite look as good in underlying stats terms. Yeah,
it's weird. Like his underlying numbers aren't anywhere near what they were at the end of last season. So he's averaged, I think it is, so it's 8 shots in 3 matches, which is just over two shots a match. He basically had 2 shots against Man United, one of which ended up in the net. To be fair, it was a good header, but it was from a set piece, which I don't think you can always necessarily rely on. His average last year was 4.97 per match. It's 2.67 now. So, he's operating way below his numbers from last year, which, he's obviously delivering. So, fair play to him. But that isn't enough yet for me to go and spend 12.5 million on him and then captain him when I've got Aguero and Salah already in my team. I think he'll probably get back up to those numbers eventually because we know that's what he's capable of. But at the moment, I don't know. It doesn't feel sustainable what he's doing.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I think the other big issue with Kane is his price as well. So a lot of people, they've got Salah, they've got Aguero. I mean, I've tried it as well. I mean, I'm not wildcarding this week, but I would if I could get Kane, Salah and Aguero in somehow without having an absolute dustbin of the rest of the team. And I can't do it, really. Some people might be able to. But I think that's another reason putting people off. And it could be annoying if he starts scoring regularly. It did worry me a little bit. He seemed to be doing one of those things where he moves a bit more into the midfield. I didn't like that.
He was very deep, wasn't he? He was more his average position in the game was further ahead than his, which is kind of a bit like what it was like at the World Cup in a way. Like he dropped deep, and I don't know if it's like a change in his particular style. I don't know. I mean, he's definitely deeper than he was. And the other thing actually worth mentioning on your table of big chances conceded is Watford are 3, so they're the third bottom or third best.
Third best, yeah.
So I mean, they've still conceded goals, but there's not a lot of underlying data to convince me that Kane's going to go nuclear in that game, which he kind of has to be a captain candidate.
Yeah, I mean, what tends to happen with Spurs is when they're against some teams, they're kind of chasing game. I know they did very well against Manchester United, but sometimes you can see, I remember a particular game against Crystal Palace, and I think Eriksen scored the only goal, and you could see Kane dipping back, and when he gets a bit frustrated about the possession, he's a kind of a real captaincy type performance, as in, he wants to kind of be in the action and get that ball, but he's obviously his strength is around the penalty box. What about some more unusual, when I say unusual, I say kind of, I suppose, some cheaper picks, some ones that are real captaincy differentials. Who takes your fancy this week?
Well, if I want to give you a really strange one, I'll give you Man United.
Okay.
Because I know, because that's going to make everybody go, whoa.
They're on a high, full of confidence.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, the reason that I say them is, and I'm not going to go out and buy a Man United player by any stretch, but I really kind of I want to defend Mourinho a little bit from his post-match press conference last night, because he said that they were aggressive in attack, and that was backed up by the numbers. So the only team that had more shots than them in game week 3 was Fulham, and now they're going to Burnley, who conceded more shots than anyone else in game week 3. So, and they need a result. They have been playing attacking football. If Lukaku's chance where he went round the goalkeeper was an inch or two to the right, it's a completely different game. And I'm not saying that United are a happy camp right now, but if you're looking for like a massive differential and you have got Man United players in your team, like Burnley are going to be hosting Man United a couple of days after either being dumped out of the Europa League or having given everything they've got to get through, because they've got to score 2 or 3 goals to get through. So I think it can be easy to overlook Man United because of last night's result, but they didn't look like a team that couldn't score.
No.
They had a lot of chances. If we're going to talk about the chances that Aguero's had and the chances that Salah's had, like, United have had loads. So if they're going to go and play a team that's conceding shots like left, right, and centre, it's a good matchup in a way.
I mean, what about Paul Pogba? Because there's a lot of people with Richarlison in their team, and if they've got a bit spare, this is basically me, I've got a little bit more money, and had been considering Paul Pogba. Is there anything to suggest that he might do well in an attacking sense?
Yeah, I mean, he's got a freer role now. What it's worth saying, actually, obviously he's got penalties, which could stand in his stead. But in terms of open play, the 2 players that kind of were the key goal threat for Man United on Monday night were Lukaku and Lingard, who's actually closer in price to Richarlison. Now, it's only one game, so I think it was 4 shots, 3 in the box, so it's not a lot to go on. I wouldn't really advise going for him straight away.
Well, I'll tell you what, though, you put a seed in there. There's a lot of Manchester United fans who play FPL.
Yeah,
you've done it. You've dropped the bombshell, the J Lings bombshell.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just worth thinking about. Like, I think that's he's going to start again. He had enough chances last night. similar price to Richarlison, so possibly an alternative. I mean, I hope people aren't thinking I'm completely mad here, but it's just I thought it was worth mentioning. Like, obviously, the game was very overshadowed by the scoreline and the Mourinho press conference. But when you just dig down into the numbers, like there are a few things that are encouraging for Man United players and fans, but also potential for United assets in FPL as well.
The Jailing's cat's out the bag. You've said it. You can't put it back. It's there. For now, David, thanks a lot. It sounds like Aguero is the main one. Hazard's a very good option as well, and right the way down the scale you've got Jailings at the bottom. But yeah, thanks a lot for that, and good luck with the game week.
Yeah, and to you.